You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm Brian Call. Got Brad Hunt here. We published my elk film called The Struggle. Brad and I were on that epic journey and got myself a nice bull. And on that hunt, we were living in Stalkasins and in sheep feet stealth bombers, which are footwear for sneaking up on animals. And the Stalkasin is sort of like an Indian moccasin, and the stealth bomber is more like a minimalist shoe, kind of. And also, it's not like a moccasin because it's not leather or anything.
No,
but
it has a little more of a sole in a way. It's more like a water. It looks more like a water type shoe.
Yeah. What I wanted to do was kind of talk about it briefly, the two today. Talk about kind of where they're at and what we recommend, what we found using them. So any of you that have any interest in this subject, you can, I guess springboard off of this discussion.
Now's the time to talk about gear, because as you got spring bear coming up, some of you do bow hunts, some of you do rifle hunts with bear, but now's the time to kind of start preparing your gear for the spring and fall seasons.
Yep. So we have been in love with the Stalkasin for years.
Yep. 2019, I think, is the first time I snagged a pair.
For all of you guys that go out, that know the value of getting your boots off and sneaking up on an animal with a bow, maybe it Arizona, be it, Eastern Montana, the breaks, whether you've got even the Dakotas, Nevada, you'll see it in, Alberta. Some of these places have some nasty cactus under the grass that you can't see. And really, silence is paramount for success. Like, you gotta be sneaky. And the thing about the Stalkasins that we really liked was they protected your feet from,
especially the cactus and
from getting hit by a cactus, especially some kind of hidden cactus in the ground. They were also very comfortable because they're custom, basically fitted almost. They're sewn well, so they fit your foot pretty solidly, and then you could wear those and sneak around in them. And so we've been using them for years and highly recommend them. And the downside was they didn't really do well in any type of wet environment. And it's forgivable because a lot of the under wet conditions, you don't make as much noise with a pair of boots on wet ground.
Right.
So, but you really couldn't put on that leather. It'll shrink. It'll kind of get it wet. Your foot will get cold and it'll have issues. But we have been wearing the Stalkasin on archery elk hunts for years in some of the spot and stock areas that we've been in. And you can really motor in on an elk in a way you can't with a pair of boots on. So Brad might be call for 30, 40 minutes, an hour, and all of a sudden you hear a bull, but he hangs up. He doesn't come in 150 yards out. He's in this thick country. You keep calling, he just doesn't come. It's like, dude, we got to get close. And it's like with Stalkasins on, we just start fleetingly, surefootedly.
Yeah, it's nice because you have something on your foot that protects you, but you can also still have the feel, because feel is everything when you're stalking like that. Feeling a branch that you might be stepping on, or
you're more deaf.
Rocks together.
If you want to win a brand new Prime bow, fully set up by Jeremiah Plier at the Wild Arrow Archery Shop, we're going to fly some lucky person here to Salt Lake City, bring you into the bow shop, have Jeremiah deck you out. You'll get the whole kit. You get a $5,000 gear package to go with it. All you got to do to be entered to win is buy a brand new t-shirt. We have some cool designs that we partnered with Black Flag on. I got a cool ram head shirt in honor of this new film that we just put out. We've got a pirate themed one, Never Surrender, in a collab with Black Flag and Gritty. And we have another one, Dead Bulls Tell No Tales. In order to win, you just go to Black Flag, that's BLK flg.com/gritty. Check out the new t-shirt designs. Buy a tee by itself for some entries to win, or buy a t-shirt in a bundle deal with a brand new tub of Black Flag Revenge Energy and Focus drink. You'll get more entries with the bundle, but if you just want to buy a t-shirt by itself, you can do that as well, or some Revenge by itself. I think the t-shirts are really cool, but I think you'll appreciate Black Flag's new Energy and Focus drinks. There's lots of servings in each container, so it's a great value. And you're going to feel the energy and focus boost. Go to Black Flag, that's BLKFLG.com/gritty. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, so you can like aim where your toe and in the pad of your foot's going to go and not break a branch. And like you can definitely maneuver as you stalk in on the animal. And you can, because you're not wearing a boot or a shoe or anything, you can close the distance fast. And still stay quiet. We can move quiet in a pair of boots. Right. We can.
I mean, I still do it today. If I have my boots on, I literally walk on the outsides of my boots where only the outside is touching the ground. Like I don't just walk flat.
Each time you put your foot down,
it's a hard sole.
You got to like, okay, put it down, let it sort of ease into the ground, make its crunchy sound, get solid, and then the next one. And closing the distance
much slower
is so much slower because that particular footwear doesn't allow you to move quickly and stay quiet. You can still move in them quietly, but they're going to make some noise in them. And if you're in a hurry, which a lot of times in this spot and stock or this calling scenario, it's like, okay, we're charging this bull. And it's like, we're just fleetingly like moving in, step, real quiet in these Stalkasins, stepping on clumps of wet grass and trying to like jump from like quiet spot to quiet spot, move in. We close that distance 70 yards, and now that bull is in a 50-yard bubble or 40-yard bubble, and he doesn't quite hear us. He kind of hears us maybe, but we sound like what an elk might sound like if it was tiptoeing in, instead of like a dude walking in boots that he totally hears. And then Brad will scream at him, and he's like, oh, that bull is so close, and he charges right in for the shot.
Or you just make some nice, sweet little calf sounds, and the whole herd comes in nice and chill, and
that happens. And so,
smoke him.
You know, we warn them for their ability for silence, for quiet. And like I said, they weren't great for wet conditions, which was sometimes problematic. But for the most part, we could work around it.
Yeah.
And then our buddy down at Sheep Feet, Caleb, he built the Stealth Bomber shoe to sort of accomplish the same thing. Different design. Instead of it being leather, it's like a slip-on. And his reason he wanted to make a different version than the leather was there's certain things about the Stalkasins that are cons. You get your pros and your cons to each of them. He wanted to address those. So he wanted it to be able to slip on really quickly. You don't have to lace them up, which with Stalkasins, you got to unlace them. Your foot doesn't just slip right in. They got to be kind of wide open, get them in, and you lace them up, and get them on. So you want them to just slip on. You want them to be really light. And they are. He wanted them to be able to handle wet conditions, like even a creek crossing or something like that. So can they take on moisture and still function? And they dry out so easily and quickly, it doesn't matter if they get wet. They're sort of like a croc almost. And he wanted the sole. This is the thing that was the biggest problem that we found with the Stalkasin is slipping on your ass. Because
like a steep downhill on the grass.
Grass is like a death trap almost. Like you're falling down, or just dusty, dirty ground that's just really soft. You'll like hard ground with like a little skiff of dust on it. There's no traction on the Stalkasin at all. And so, and they get hardened like a hardened leather. They get shiny, smooth, hard. And so whoop, you could just find yourself on your ass.
Yep.
So he wanted to have a shoe that had a little more grip. So when he designed the Stealth Bomber, it's slip-on, and the bottom has some felt. And that felt then has some grip to it. And it provides a little bit of also cushion at the bottom of your foot to try to keep it a little quieter. Now, what we noticed when we wore them, but we wore them both quite a bit, on and off, and they each had their pros and cons. And I went back to Caleb at Sheep Eat and said, here's my thing. Here's what I liked. Here's what I didn't like. And so now there's a new version that he is bringing forward. We're going to get a prototype here real soon. And it kind of addressed whatever issues I had with the original OG Stealth Bomber. But what would you say, Brad, is the main takeaway? Or maybe like what conditions would you prefer the Stalkasin and what conditions would you prefer the Stealth Bomber?
Always and forever, coos deer, mule deer, I will probably wear the Stalkasin because to me, they were just in those scenarios where like that desert or even the high mountains of Nevada or Idaho or whatever, where especially early season, I'm talking bow hunting, like August, those are the times that there's not a lot of wind. The sound, I would take the Stalkasins in those moments. Where we were on your elk hunt, there's not near as much crunchy stuff. There's also more vegetation. There are more like grasses in the steep mountains and stuff. I'm going to take the Stealth Bombers there. Where those times, like I said, where it's like kind of obviously the drier climates, I still will run like the Stalkasin or whatever, just for mule deer, coos deer mainly. But elk, I mean, most of the time I'm actually not that quiet for elk anyway. I think the Stealth Bombers are perfect because they don't sound like a boot, but there can still be a little bit of sound there that is a natural sounding sound to an elk. That's why I think a lot of guys screw up when they are stalking on elk sometimes is they make a call, but then they try and be super quiet when it comes to touching the ground. And the elk is like, well, I hear a sound, but I don't hear natural elk sounds. Yeah. So, and then in wetter situations for sure. You know, where I got creek crossings and things like that, a lot of the Stealth Bomber can dry out quickly. And now you got to think about getting your sock wet, obviously. But those Stealth Bombers will dry out super fast. And where you obviously can't do that with the leather moccasin.
Yeah, those other ones get heavy too.
Correct.
When they're wet. And I kind of disagree with you. You know, I kind of disagree. I see myself leaning toward the Stealth Bomber the more I used it, and I'll tell you my reason. The only reason at this point where I kind of lean on the Stalkasin was for silence. They were a little quieter, and for cactus protection. Yeah. Okay. They were the sides.
Yeah, and that's I would say any place there's a ton of cactus, like the Stealth Bomber is an open, softer fabric that's going to puncture on the side.
Yes.
Jumper cactus and stuff. Those suck.
However, so like I said, silence and protection were the two things, but they redesigned the Stealth Bomber to have a quieter, thinner sole.
I haven't seen the brand new ones.
And so they're feeling closer now to the quietness or the thickness of the Stalkasin. So now you're kind of like, is the silence thing really apples to, or is it really a disadvantage now with one over the other?
Right.
So I'm not sure that
I only know what I know.
I'm not sure that it is. And also, I think that the Stealth Bomber, the sole, it has some things to protect against cactus. So, like you said, you can still get stabbed from the side in a way that you could still get stabbed in the side from the Stalkasin because it's only one layer of leather, right? Where the bottom has two, and it's almost impossible for a spine to get through the bottom of a Stalkasin. Correct. It can still get through the side. I got stabbed a few times. Now the Stealth Bomber, it's just mesh really, so it can really get in on the sides. But I'm not sure it can get in the bottom really much different than it does with the Stalkasin. So how many times have I been in need of upper foot protection? There's been some areas. It's true. I'd say less in Arizona by far and more in Alberta because I can't see the cactuses in Alberta. And there have been times where I've been on my knees and I stuck my foot back, and in a stealth bomber, that cactus would be right in the top of my foot.
Right. Yeah.
And in a Stalkasin, it would not be. The leather would at least help, protect it. So, but for Arizona, where I'm like stepping, I rarely get stabbed in the side of a foot.
Right.
It happens, but rarely. It's not something I'm particularly worried about. And so if they're on equal levels of quietness and the protection is just a little bit more maybe with the other one, it comes down to this third reason why I like the stealth bomber. And that is it comes off in a second. It comes on and off in a second.
Yeah.
I don't have to unlace it. I don't have to like undo it, blah, blah, blah. And then like kind of like fiddle with it. The Stalkasin does not come off without like two hands and pulling and pushing because it's a snug fit.
For sure.
Where the Stalkasin or the stealth bomber, I'm like, bloop, bloop, and I'm in socks. Well, I found the more we hunt, Brad, the more I ditch. I didn't want Stalkasins on my feet or the stealth bomber.
For sure.
I wanted them both off.
For years, I mean, I've always gone to take the boots off.
Socks. Like that last 50 yards when I killed my bull, I could motor in socks. If I had the Stalkasins on, I wouldn't be able to shuck them very quickly.
Right.
It would have taken me sitting down, untying, pulling them off. It would have been a process.
Yeah, for sure.
With the stealth bombers, I went whoop, whoop, and I just started motoring in while they were fighting.
Yeah.
No time lost, moved right in, and I could close. I was noticing for the 2 days prior, you were calling elk. And for the whole time I had been wearing the Stalkasins or the stealth bombers and never taking them off. And I just kind of try to close the distance and get closer to the bull that's screaming.
Oh, yeah.
And I was getting there, but he'd hear it. He'd hear this and he'd hear that. And then he'd like go 20 yards further and I'm like, damn it. And he's just hearing these micro sounds, but it was enough. Those 2 days prior, I started just ditching those stealth bombers because they slipped off so easy. And I closed 50 yards in dead silence.
Right.
There's no comparison. I don't care. There's no comparison to barefoot or socks.
Long before I ever even had Stalkasins.
Sure, everybody has, but you get spoiled wearing a pretty quiet shoe, and you're like, do I really want to take it off? You get lazy.
Yeah, right, for sure.
And I think you convince yourself that you're quiet even with those on. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not at the level of a pair of socks.
Nope.
You're not.
Oh, no, not even close.
And therefore, there's a lot of value for me to be able to take that stealth bomber off and just go 30 yards closer,
right?
20 yards closer, 50 yards closer, and not make a peep. Yeah. I could move like a ninja in a pair of socks.
For sure.
And yet, I could still wear those other ones most of the whole time.
Yet if I'm in Alberta or Arizona, they aren't coming off.
That's right.
So
that is absolutely right.
Not coming off.
Where there's cactuses.
I have done that, and it sucks for a week.
Yeah, where there's cactuses on the ground like that. I did that in Alberta, and I had so many spines in my foot and stuff. It was not good.
I did it on an antelope in Nebraska. I was working for the railroad, and I realized, like, I can get a tag. And so I went and knocked on this guy's door before I bought the tag, and I'm like, hey, I see you got a bunch of antelope. Like, can I hunt these antelope? I have my bow. And he's like, yeah, because back there in the Midwest, they're freaking pests. They hate them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, slip in. And I took my boots off. New terrain. Wasn't used to it. Didn't know anything about it. Sure enough, started stalking in there, got close. And like for weeks on my belly, my feet, knees, I was pulling out so many nasty little cactus things. Yeah. Because I didn't know. There's Alberta. You don't see them.
I know.
And they suck so bad.
Those dead black ones under the grass, they stab you just as good as a live one.
And they're like little microfiber looking.
Yeah, I hate them.
Micro hair needles.
But here's the thing. So that's where I found I was really liking those those stealth bombers. Mm-hmm. The other thing was this. We'll wear them from morning till dark. Mm-hmm. And in damp conditions, it was a little annoying. Your foot gets a little wet in the leather. It was like not a problem. They handled the wet better. But also, there was more foot support in the stealth bomber.
Yeah.
I felt like I was wearing a tennis shoe, and we were wearing them all day. And I was motoring those days. We had the stealth bomber on, where I was delicately walking the days that I wore the Stalkasins, especially when we had a pack and we're covering this rocky hill and we're climbing up. Now, I don't know if that holds true anymore, because the new version of the Stealth Bomber
are a lighter, quieter.
They moved it to be quieter, which now is going to give it less support.
Mm-hmm.
But I was okay with that. I told Kayla, I'd rather have less support and the silence. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Right.
And a lot of guys, they're just slipping them on.
Yeah.
You know, like, in the moment, they're not wearing them all day.
I would say longevity, especially in some more rocky, dirty, like your high desert stuff, hunts for like elk hunts. The Stealth Bomber probably does have a longer longevity.
Yeah.
I mean, most guys aren't spending 20 days on one hunt in a pair of footwear like that, where I can wear out a pair of Stalkasins in, if not a couple pair in a season.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm wearing them all day, every day.
Me too.
Hiking steep, nasty stuff.
They're both excellent products. Yep. They're both of the sneaky type shoes on the market.
Yep.
I've worn everything there is to wear, and those Stealth Bombers, those Stalkasins are the best. I mean, we work with both of them. We love both the owners, Tanner over at Stalkasins and Caleb over at Sheep Feet. We actually like having both.
And I think I will always have both, because like I said, with some of the cactus stuff, but they both have an advantage one way or the other to certain hunts.
There were just days where I wore Stalkasins and days I wore Stealth Bombers too, depending on where we were going. And
for sure,
I was testing them too to just see what their limits were.
Yep.
But if you use the code GRITTY, you're going to get a discount at Stalkasins and at Sheep Feet, either one.
Correct.
We get, whether you shop at one or the other, doesn't matter to us.
And if you're not looking for bow hunting shoes, just the Sheep Feet insoles themselves to put in your regular hiking boots, the orthotics, everyday stuff, they've been very nice.
Yeah, the orthotic is excellent. You can use your iPhone to scan your foot, and it scans the same thing that does the facial recognition. That same camera gets every perfect contour of your foot.
Yep.
And so then it will 3D print the exact match, and you'll have it, in your house.
It'll match to your foot.
And it is hard to beat the comfort that comes from, and the support that comes from those. They'll take a pair of boots and take them to a whole new level.
Yeah. Especially if you're somebody, not even just hunting, working on concrete all day, standing on your feet. They definitely, your brother-in-law was kind of like a big testament to that, because he's on concrete all day, every day for 8 hours a day.
Yeah. So we love both those companies. I would, it's hard to say. I mean, I like them both, but I am leaning on that Stealth Bomber as just because of the ease of taking it on and off, because I slip into socks so often. I'm very curious though to see how the support is going to be. It's probably still going to be a step above the Stalkasin.
Yeah.
Even though they softened it to be a little quieter, I still suspect it's going to be, because of the felt sole and stuff, it's going to be a little more supportive. So some guys are like, dude, I can't wear those Stalkasins all day because the arch of their foot,
sissy. I'm just kidding.
It's feels like
it's real.
Their tarsal, their tendons and stuff feel like they're gonna tear. They're like, Brian, I couldn't walk on those all day.
And there's a lot of people what people don't really know is for years up to archery seasons, I will walk around without shoes on.
Yeah.
To toughen up the feet a lot.
Yeah. I think most guys aren't, we would wear them from morning till dark.
Yeah.
Some of our spot and stock elk hunts. And like I said, the Stealth Bomber was just a little step above in support, to where if you had an issue with wearing them all day, you wouldn't with the Stealth Bomber.
Right.
And that's how Caleb originally designed it. But I was like, dude, it's got to be quieter.
Right.
And so he's like, all right. So with that, it lost some of that tennis shoe build, but it became quieter like the Stalkasin, which is really the point of it.
Yeah.
Mostly.
I'm excited
to have stocking foot.
You gotta have one or the other,
and then also have it be supportive like a boot.
Yeah.
All right, folks, quick interruption. If you like the show and you want to support us and you want to have really, really sneaky feet, check out one of these two products or both. These are a pair of leather Stalkasins that I get from Lone Peak Leather. Been wearing them for a few years. And these are the Stealth Bomber made by Sheep Feet. I own both, and I recommend you own both. The leather Stalkasins are especially useful in very dry weather, and when there are spiky, nasty cactuses and things that'll stab you in the foot. Really love these. The Stealth Bombers are especially good for wet weather and for when you need to motor long distances and maintain stealth. I especially liked the Stealth Bombers while I was elk hunting. It was like wearing a sneaky tennis shoe, and then when I got in real close, I could slip them off and go that last bit in my socks and be extra stealthy. If you want that real barefoot feel, you're going to want the Stalkasins. If you want a little more support, something gentler on your feet but still quiet, the Stealth Bombers are the ticket. Go to sheepfeedoutdoors.com, use the code GRITTY, get yourself some Stealth Bombers, head on over to lonepeakleather.com and get yourself a pair of these excellent Stalkasins. Use the code GRITTY. Now, let's get back to the show.
Because I promise you, I've tried them all. The ones that slip over your boot, that clip on, that are soft.
So loud.
Sorry, you're
not a ninja.
Not even in the same class of quietness.
No.
I'm sorry. So I'm really curious to see the newest iteration.
Yeah, if you guys have experience and comments using both, let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, being able to slip it on and off real quick and having a little bit better all day comfort.
Yeah.
I started to not care that much that it wasn't as quiet. Because I was like, I'm not even wearing it anyway. The last 20 to 50 yards.
Yep.
I'm not even wearing it anyway.
Terrain based.
True. There are going to be those areas where it's like, well, it's not worth the risk of a cat. But even then, there are times where I'm like,
no,
I remember
I'm over
in Alberta,
that.
I had socks on. I remember, and my buck was bedded off a cliff bluff in a coulee, I was like feeling the ground lightly with my foot and my sock, and I was like, "Is there a cat? Oh yeah, there is. Oh, push, pressure, moving." And then I snuck like another 15 yards closer in my socks, but back then I was wearing boots, and I was like, "It can be done for the bold." And
I'm over it because after. I don't remember what hunt it was. I think it might have been that Nebraska hunt.
Yeah.
I ended up going to the doctor because my feet got so infected.
Really?
From like the micro, like they were just like, what it was is they were just all festering up and coming out.
I can see that.
I had it all across
my
belly, my arms. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I'm over that.
Well, yeah, they're both great.
Yes. Absolutely.
We'll see. I love that they're available. They're not that much.
Yep.
And, you got to have them for spot and stock bow hunting at this point or something like it. It's so much better to be wearing either one of them just sort of on that, you never know when it's like there's an elk right there and you didn't expect it. And the reason you were able to even move through those like aspens like us as quiet as we did is because we weren't wearing boots.
Yep.
Boots, they're a rough thing to be wearing to be sneaky.
And in most cases, if you're in really wide open country, in most cases you can wear your boots, have those on your pack, and you have the time because you can see.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my
slip them out,
my
off.
sneaky feet on.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And, in thicker terrains,
yeah,
it's kind of like, you got to have them on all day for an hour never moment.
Well, like I said, we'll use them both, and depending on the hunt. I do this all the time too. I have various boots or whatever, and I will go out and hunt one day in one, the next day in the other, and then go, for this particular hunt, I actually like this one the best. And then I start wearing them throughout, when we're not backpacking.
Right.
That's definitely, and having both it's just a good way to go. I got to admit, I'll wear the Stalkasins around town. I don't know if I'd wear the Stealth Bombers around town.
I don't think so. The Stalkasins have a feel. The Stealth Bomber, I feel like I'm a water hippie.
Yeah, it looks like you just got out of the river.
Exactly.
Rafting. Yep. Whereas the Stalkasins, you feel like I'm some sort of native hippie.
I feel like more of a badass.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know. Style. So anyway, let us know what you think. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Stay gritty.